What an unattractive acceptance speech by a 22-year-old. Such a big turnoff. I'm so disappointed.
Caitlin Clark destroyed for claiming white privilege. She's now caught in a whirlwind of criticism that has left her in tears. After skyrocketing to fame with record-breaking performances in the WNBA, Clark is now facing relentless attacks from some of the league's loudest voices, including Angel Reese and Aja Wilson. Her recent remarks about acknowledging her privilege as a white athlete have ignited a firestorm of backlash, with her haters labeling her as insincere and opportunistic.
If you really mean it, if what you really want is the spotlight on the black players, then don't say you'll sit for the profile. Sorry, Paul, but this is ridiculous.
Critics argue that Caitlin's words were a calculated move to manipulate narratives in a league where she's already accused of overshadowing black athletes. Angel Reese and Aja Wilson have doubled down, accusing Clark of using white privilege to steal the spotlight from players like them who, they claim, are constantly overlooked despite their contributions.
And, you know, I really think it's important that you pay attention to the black women. I mean, she just cannot get down low enough for them to really just kick her in the face.
These accusations are not just about sports. They're stirring up larger conversations about race, equality, and merit in women's basketball.
She's really looking out for everybody else. And it's so sad that there are so many people that continue to turn a blind eye to that. Knowing how selfless she is, and they still want to say, Caitlin Clark, you know, she's not the reason. Let's give other players their flowers. No, Caitlin Clark is the reason.
But here's the twist. Despite their claims, it's Caitlin who has captivated millions, drawn unprecedented viewership, and introduced women's basketball to new fans who never cared before. Her influence is undeniable, yet these same critics are trying to tear her down, shifting the focus from her undeniable hard work and talent to a manufactured controversy. The stakes couldn't be higher as the debate rages on, and it's clear Caitlin's story is far from over.
You know, for whatever reason, they decide to get themselves involved, whether it is actually malintent or maybe they just want to get themselves in the headline. A lot of players got the spotlight this season because of Caitlin Clark. Not to mention just overall, Caitlin Clark brought millions, literally, more eyeballs to the league this season.
Caitlin Clark's acknowledgement of privilege has become a lightning rod for controversy. In her Time magazine interview, she openly stated, "As a white person, there is privilege." While the comment was intended to highlight the need to elevate black women in the sport, it has been twisted and weaponized against her by critics. Angel Reese and Aja Wilson, two of Clark's loudest detractors, seized on the statement, accusing her of pandering and insincerity. They claim her stardom is not solely based on her talent, but on her ability to benefit from systemic advantages they say are not afforded to black athletes. This framing has fueled a narrative that undermines Caitlin's hard-earned success, casting her as a product of favoritism rather than merit.
I don't think the WNBA is ready for this type of attention that she's bringing. Racism. Everybody's talking about enough with the racist BS. She's nasty. She knows how to ball. Everybody else is jealous. They're pissed off because she's getting this, like, it's ridiculous. And we're never going to advance as a species, and we're never, if he keeps having that type of attitude.
What's particularly striking is that Caitlin's comment was a reflection of humility and respect for the trailblazing black athletes who paved the way in women's basketball. She credited legends like Lisa Leslie and Maya Moore for building the foundation of the WNBA and creating opportunities for players like her. Rather than positioning herself as above the league's legacy, she acknowledged that her accomplishments stand on the shoulders of those who came before. But instead of being applauded for her self-awareness, Caitlin has found herself in a storm of criticism. For Angel Reese, this was another opportunity to take a swipe at Caitlin.
The whole notion that she's just been given white privilege, really, okay, tell that to the greatest black female athletes of all time. It's absolute ridiculous. She deserved where she was at because she was a good player.
Reigniting a rivalry that has been brewing since their collegiate days. Reese, who has publicly embraced the role of a villain, wasted no time framing Caitlin's comment as proof of her supposed privilege, suggesting that it explained the media's fascination with Clark over black athletes like herself.
When I look at Caitlin Clark, fans are tuning in to watch her. And you know who that's helping? Everybody else.
What Caitlin Clark does is kind of simple, really. She shows up at games, she signs autographs, she talks to little girls wearing jerseys, she smiles to the crowd, and then here's the most important thing. She competes like a maniac. I mean like a maniac.
Aja Wilson also joined the fray, accusing the system of sidelining black players to prop up Caitlyn's popularity, a claim that conveniently ignores Clark's relentless work ethic and record-breaking performances.
But as a white person, there is privilege. And it just makes me sad that she reacted the way that she did, because Caitlin Clark is so talented.
Despite the vitriol, Caitlyn has remained composed, standing by her remarks and continuing to shine on the court. Yet the backlash reveals a deeper tension within the WNBA. Some critics are less concerned with Clark's words and more intent on tearing down her achievements. They ignore the fact that Caitlyn's talent and influence have helped bring unprecedented attention to women's basketball, instead framing her as a divisive figure. In reality, her comments reflect an effort to unify and uplift, not divide, a sport that desperately needs more visibility and support. The racial narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark's rise to fame has turned into a polarizing debate, with critics weaponizing her success to push claims of systemic favoritism.
Rookie of the Year race is over, but we just have to understand that when a transformational figure enters the fray, you got to pause and then isolate and compartmentalize and give them the love that they're due. And in this case, it belongs to Caitlin Clark.
Aja Wilson, a three-time WNBA MVP, openly accused the media and league of pushing Clark into the spotlight at the expense of black athletes. She asserted that Clark's popularity is rooted in the Great White Hope Syndrome, a phrase that suggests Clark's success is amplified because she represents a palatable image for mainstream audiences. This argument, however, dismisses Caitlyn's undeniable contributions to the sport and the sheer impact she has made in transforming women's basketball into a global conversation.
Caitlin Clark now has the rookie record, the history of the WNBA. She's now going to try to set the all-time record, but 12 games to go.
Caitlin Clark has done is grown the WNBA exponentially. She did in 5 weeks what would have taken 5 years. And as it pertains to draft viewership, she did in 5 days what would have taken 5 years.
For Reese and Wilson, the narrative is clear. Caitlyn's success comes at their expense. They argue that despite dominating on the court and breaking records themselves, they remain overlooked in comparison. This sentiment has spilled into public discourse, where commentators have jumped on the bandwagon to claim that the WNBA is failing to properly elevate its black stars. However, what these critiques conveniently overlook is that Clark is not just a product of media hype, but of her ability to draw massive viewership and revitalize interest in a league struggling with financial losses. She didn't just earn her spot in the spotlight, she brought millions of fans with her, many of whom had never engaged with women's sports before. What makes these criticisms even more contradictory is the acknowledgement from the same detractors that Caitlyn has helped the WNBA minimize its losses. Despite a projected $50 million deficit, the league ended the year losing $40 million, a financial improvement attributed in large part to Clark's ability to draw audiences. Yet, instead of recognizing her as a unifying force, some have chosen to frame her as a symbol of division. This raises the question, is the real issue Caitlyn's success, or the uncomfortable reality that the WNBA's structural problems run deeper than any one player's influence?
WNBA, I'm talking players, coaches, and refs. They're all a bunch of Caitlin Clark haters. They're all a bunch of jealous haters.
Yep.
They are just working themselves up about Caitlin Clark just to hate on her. Skylar Diggins is bumping her. Their girls are complaining on the bench. Referees are getting into it now. They're all a bunch of haters.
Adding fuel to the fire, commentators have compared Caitlyn's rise to that of legendary black athletes, from Serena Williams to Lisa Leslie, questioning whether Clark's fame would have been possible if she were black. This comparison not only disrespects Caitlyn's work ethic, but also undermines the legacies of those same black athletes who achieved greatness on their own terms. Caitlyn never sought to diminish their impact. In fact, she has consistently credited these icons as her inspiration. The real tragedy here is that the conversation has shifted from celebrating Clark's record-breaking rookie season to dissecting her race, turning what should be a story of triumph into a divisive narrative about privilege. The reality is that Caitlin Clark's achievements represent something bigger than just personal accolades. Her success has brought attention to the disparity in support and recognition for women's basketball as a whole. Yet rather than embracing the opportunity to address these broader issues, her critics seem more interested in tearing her down. The accusations of white privilege overlook the fact that her historic viewership numbers, like the 18.9 million people who watched the NCAA championship, came not because of privilege, but because of her undeniable talent, fierce competitiveness, and ability to captivate audiences. If anything, Caitlyn's success should serve as a blueprint for elevating the entire sport, not as ammunition for racial divides.
This is not a new thing.
Sure.
In that way, I do think Caitlyn's being used as a pawn. Caitlyn didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this. We've been trying to tell you. And once again, for so long, as a player, I would almost joke. I'd be like, I would have loved to have shut up and dribble. In so many ways, I would have loved to have been valued.
The backlash against Caitlin Clark has been relentless, with critics like Angel Reese and Aja Wilson attempting to redefine her narrative from a trailblazer to a symbol of racial favoritism. This criticism intensified after Clark's acknowledgement of privilege, with her detractors using it as proof that her success is unearned. Yet the reality is far more complex and compelling. Caitlin's response to the hate has been nothing short of remarkable, showing grace under fire while continuing to let her performance on the court do the talking. Clark's response to these accusations has been characterized by poise and a refusal to stoop to the level of her critics. While Angel Reese and others have capitalized on the controversy to escalate tensions, Caitlyn has remained steadfast in her message. She respects the contributions of black athletes and believes the sport is stronger when all players are elevated. Her ability to stay focused amidst such vitriol underscores the very reason she's become a fan favorite, not just for her skills, but for her humility and determination.
Caitlin Clark was the solution for so many things, but so many players, coaches are also painting her out to be the problem. There was all of this just nonsense about things that Caitlin was doing wrong when, in my personal opinion, she was doing nothing but going out there and playing great basketball every night and ignoring the hate that was coming to her from all sides.
What's truly ironic is how this backlash has inadvertently spotlighted Clark's unparalleled contributions to women's basketball. While critics accuse her of benefiting from systemic advantages, the facts speak differently. Caitlyn has drawn millions of fans to the sport, shattered records, and brought a new level of visibility to the WNBA that no other player has managed in recent history. Her detractors ignore the hours she has spent in the gym, the sacrifices she's made, and the sheer passion she brings to every game. These achievements are not handed out based on privilege. They are earned through relentless effort. Even more striking is how Caitlyn's haters seem to ignore the greater context of her rise. Yes, she has been criticized for acknowledging white privilege, but the backlash speaks to a larger issue within the WNBA, its inability to rally around its biggest stars without dividing them. The league, desperate for visibility, has leaned heavily on Caitlyn's marketability, but rather than celebrating her as a unifying figure, some of its loudest voices have chosen to isolate her. This not only hurts Caitlyn, but also undermines the league's ability to grow. Instead of presenting a united front to elevate women's basketball, the conversation has devolved into finger-pointing and resentment.
This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league. And she's a rookie, targeted by society, targeted by her looks, targeted by her reputation, targeted by the disrespect that they've shown to the WNBA. She said, now they're expecting this rookie class to be perfect. This rookie class isn't even one of the best rookie classes in the last 10 years.
Perhaps the most puzzling aspect of the backlash is its contradiction. Critics have called for more recognition of black athletes, yet they fail to acknowledge Caitlyn's consistent efforts to highlight the legacies of players like Lisa Leslie, Maya Moore, and others who paved the way. Caitlyn's acknowledgement of privilege wasn't an attempt to overshadow anyone. It was a reflection of her awareness of the sport's history and a call to uplift everyone. However, this nuance has been lost in the noise, with her critics more focused on tearing her down than engaging with the deeper message she was trying to convey. Caitlin Clark's response to this firestorm is a testament to her character. Rather than engaging in petty disputes or firing back at her critics, she has stayed focused on her mission to grow the sport and inspire the next generation of athletes. Her resilience in the face of such hostility speaks volumes about her strength, and it's this unshakable resolve that continues to draw fans to her side. Caitlin has not just survived the backlash, she has risen above it, proving that true greatness isn't just about performance on the court, it's also about how you handle yourself when the world tries to tear you down.
There is a lot of appropriate attention on Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, and we found out that the Fever Storm game from over the weekend drew 2.2 million viewers, which is massive. The WNBA has 18 games this season where they've had more than 1 million viewers average, and 16 of those 18 have featured Caitlin Clark. So you cannot deny the connectivity of Caitlin Clark playing basketball and people wanting to watch. If she's playing, they will come, they will watch the game.
And yet, the most telling part of this saga is what it says about her critics. By attacking Caitlin, they have inadvertently highlighted her influence. The fact that she's become such a polarizing figure is proof of her impact, an athlete who has shaken up the status quo and forced people to reckon with the future of women's basketball. This isn't just about privilege or race. It's about the power of one player to change the game entirely. Instead of tearing her down, it's time to recognize Caitlin Clark for what she truly is, a transformative force in the world of sports.
The WNBA tried to capitalize on her popularity and crammed a lot of games in over a short amount of time, playing against the best teams in the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark's journey is a testament to resilience, talent, and the undeniable impact one athlete can have on a sport. While critics like Angel Reese and Ija Wilson attempt to diminish her achievements by framing them through the lens of privilege, the truth is clear. Caitlin's influence extends far beyond any narrative they try to construct. She has shattered records, drawn millions of fans, and ignited a renewed passion for women's basketball, achievements that cannot be ignored or dismissed.
No one cares what skin color you are. You know what America loves? Let me break it down for you. We absolutely love one thing. You know what it is? Underdogs. We don't care about your color. We don't care if you're married, single, divorced. We don't care about anything. We love humble underdogs. We just do.
Despite the backlash, Caitlin has proven time and again that she's not just a player, but a trailblazer, inspiring countless young athletes to dream big. Her acknowledgement of privilege was not an admission of weakness, but a sign of humility, a willingness to embrace the larger conversation about equality in sports. And while her detractors continue to criticize, Caitlin lets her actions speak louder than their words, remaining focused on what truly matters, the game she loves. As the debate rages on, one thing remains undeniable. Caitlin Clark's legacy is already cemented. She is not just a player, she is a phenomenon who has redefined what it means to succeed in women's basketball. And for all the hate and controversy, Caitlin stands tall, proving that greatness isn't about avoiding criticism, but about rising above it. The world is watching, and Caitlin Clark is just getting started.
Somebody coming along and elevating the sport shine ultimately benefits you. Go out there, compete with her, try to bust her up if you want to, and all of that stuff. Just don't hate on the acclaim that she's getting.
If you're ready to dive into the latest and greatest moments in women's basketball, you're in the right place. Here on WNBA Original, we cover everything from breaking news to inspiring stories, bringing you closer to the action and the players who make it all happen. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications, so you'll always be the first to know what's happening on and off the court. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more from WNBA Original.